Hi, aligned souls. Welcome to the Soul Revival podcast, where we have meaningful conversations to help you explore tools and healing methods that help you return to your soul self. Join us as we help you merge the ethereal and the material worlds, allowing you to live your most fulfilling and aligned life. I'm Lindsay Stanton, author, somatic practitioner, intuitive Reiki master, and grief coach.
Hello, I am Autumn, a believer in miracles, intuitive guide, and psychic medium. We're your hosts and guides. We don't just talk healing, we live it. This is where soul meets strategy, spirit meets structure, and our highest selves take the mic.
Welcome to the Soul Revival podcast. We're so excited for today's guest. We are continuing the track of talking about Forever Family and inviting in guests related to Forever Family. And I personally had the pleasure of meeting our next guest at a Forever Family retreat. And she and I would say our energies just very much resonated. We're both deeply animal people, which I know we're going to be diving into. But Connie, if you don't mind introducing yourself and what your background is and what you do.
Sure.
You'll want to stay tuned throughout the entire podcast for a special announcement all about angel signs.
Well, thank you for having me. So I am an evidential psychic medium. I am also now an award-winning author. I am a spiritual teacher. I teach mediumship classes, and I am a three-time near-death experiencer. So all of that, and I'm just grateful to be here with you guys today.
Oh, we're so excited to dive in. So, we always like to start out each episode with a very specific question, and that is what connects you most to your soul self?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, and for me, it was a long journey, and I wrote my book about this. But I had to find a way to discover or rediscover who I was on a soul level. I had to remember myself, and for me, it's really just being true to yourself, doing what brings you joy, what resonates with you and fills your heart. And that's what I had to learn. And it really sounds simple, but it's not, right? Because, life gets in the way and we all go on this little, like, rat maze, all in different directions, trying to figure it out. And it seems so simplistic in theory, but it was a tough thing to do. And it took several years.
I feel like the biggest teachers and lessons in life are the simplest things, honestly.
Right, right.
Well, do you mind sharing with us some stories from Forever Family of just maybe like, I don't know if there's any specific readings that you've given. Obviously, I've experienced firsthand the power that Forever Family has on your grief journey, and it was so instrumental early days, especially. I mean, I love what they do and obviously a part of it now, but their retreats are just a game changer. Are there any specific instances where you really felt like you witnessed huge shifts as a result of readings at the events?
Absolutely. So, all of them. And if anybody, hasn't heard about Forever Family, I encourage you, please, Google them, look at their grief retreats. They are so spiritually transformative, so healing. And I leave there and I'm just like, wow, like I'm lifted by the amount of healing that you can feel from, and we always say this, the mediums, get together and we're like, we gauge the energy, on the first day, and then we all talk at the end, and everybody's like, wow, what a difference, like 3 days after. It's incredible. But one of the things, there's a lot of things that stand out, but I remember specifically, I think it was maybe last year in California. And I will be in California again in October. So there's still the grief retreats out there. So if you haven't, signed up, go look for that, and maybe I'll see you there. But last year, I did three breakout sessions, two on Saturday and one on Sunday. And one of my first groups, the very first lady that I came to, she had lost a son through suicide, and I had brought through evidence in the reading. But the very first thing that I said to her was, I feel like I have a son, and he's so very happy to talk to you. And so those aren't my typical words or how I, open up a reading, but sometimes spirit makes you say things in a certain way, right? Or certain phrases. So like kind of in the back of my mind, I caught that, to myself. I'm like, okay, well, let me just see where this goes, right? And so I gave the reading. It was very evidential. Afterwards, later on that day, this lady approached me and she started to cry. And she told me that this retreat was the last resort for her. And she had spent the last 3 years trying to heal from her grief of losing her son. And she had sought out different mediums for readings. None of the mediums that she went to were able to make a connection to her son or bring through, authentic evidence. And so they told her that her son didn't want to talk to her.
Oh my gosh.
Horrific,
Oh,
absolutely unacceptable and horrific. And
oh,
I was stunned that any human would possibly say that to somebody in such a delicate state of grief. I was just floored. And but um so it made sense to me why the very first thing I said is, he's so happy to be able to talk to you, right? So now I'm like, okay, well, this makes sense to me. But it was very impactful because I realized, and I mean, I've always known it, but I think it really hit me then how impactful a medium can be on someone, especially someone really struggling with grief, and how important it is to have such a high moral and code of ethics when dealing, with people that are experiencing grief or trauma or whatever. I take that very seriously, but there unfortunately, there are a lot of fraudsters out there, and the right thing to do in such an instance would have said, I'm sorry, I'm not making a connection. I'll offer you a refund, or we can do this at a different time. But never, ever would you tell somebody their person in spirit doesn't want to hear from them, because that's never true.
no.
All of this work is done from a place of love and light and healing. So there should be nothing being brought through that's derogatory or hurtful or negative. So that was a real eye opener for me. And it really hit home like, wow, we may not even realize it, but somebody's hanging on by a very thin thread by the time they get to us. And we have to treat that with all serious respect and, delicately. So,
Yeah, reverence. I mean, they're at their very, very most vulnerable. And I think it goes to the importance of organizations like Forever Family and their certification process and the integrity that they bring into their online resources as well as their retreats.
right.
So, wow, I'm like blown away by that story.
I just couldn't believe it. I mean, there are so many things. I'm always blown away by, the readings with children. And when I first started bringing children, I knew I have a young person here, but then I remember one specific reading at the end. It was actually grandparents that wanted to get in touch with their grandchild. The child never spoke. He was born with some sort of disease process that he was crippled and couldn't speak, was nonverbal. But oh my goodness, the amount of evidence that came through, I was just amazed to learn that he was about 16 months old.
Mm.
And so it was a real eye opener for me to realize the intelligence of spirit, right? That you could be talking to a baby, and they're, relaying things as, as if they're, a 30, 40 or, older person. So that was another thing, and it constantly amazes me, the intelligence of spirit, and keeps me on my toes.
I feel like it's such a sacred container too. You have to hold that sacred container close when communicating. So, Connie, I have a question for you. With your near-death experiences, do you think that it has opened you up more to the other side in your communication and what you know and see for now and the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So, part of my journey, I was a natural born medium. I started seeing and hearing spirit at the age of 4, but then I forgot. So, life happened. I wasn't brought up in a family that, was spiritual or talked about psychics or mediums. And when I had my near-death experiences, I was in my early 20s, the first two. But that term wasn't really out there, right? Nobody was talking about that. So when I had all 3 of mine, I thought I just had cool dreams. It wasn't later on until I started doing this work and I started like putting the pieces together. I'm like, wait a second, yeah, I flatlined, yeah, I died. There's some things that actually happened there. But for me, it's interesting because, everybody has different experiences. There's some common, denominators with near-death experiences, but for me, and I think this is because I really didn't lose anybody that I was close to. So relatives would have been like great greats, and things that I really, people I didn't really have a relationship with, here on earth. But for me, my near-death experiences were all about waking me up again. So after the first one, I started to have sleep paralysis episodes where you're between the waking and dreaming state and you can't move and you're frozen, and sometimes it's terrifying. But I was having them frequently. And during these episodes, I was hearing this voice repetitively with this like vibration humming sound going on. And the voice kept saying, you need to raise yourself up. You need to raise yourself up. And of course, I'd come out of that state and think, well, of course, I can't move. I'm kind of frozen there. I need to, right? That's what I'm thinking. And I didn't realize it till years later. It was literally, a spirit guide, my soul, someone on the other side connected to my soul telling me you need to raise yourself up, like my vibration, to be back to being a medium, to communicate with the other side. It was literally, they were telling me how to do it, and I didn't understand it. So, that's what I think brought on 2 years later near-death experience too. It's like, yeah, she's a little thick. We're gonna have to do this again, right? And with the second one, after that happened, I started to, I was commuting daily into New York City at the time, about 2 hours one way. It was miserable. But as I was doing that, as I came in contact or sat near people, I started seeing and hearing again. I would get little flashes of visions or hear names. So the second one woke me up, and also shortly afterwards, all of a sudden I stumbled across a psychic shop in New York City and went in for a reading. And then I was hooked, like I was drawn, like I knew this is like, I'm supposed to be doing something with this, right? So that was interesting. So it was like, okay, we're going to get her there. We're going to get her there. But I'm true to my nature. I'm a Gemini. I think I'm a triple Gemini. So if things don't hold my attention more than 5 minutes, I'm out. And so when I got the cards, I bought a deck of cards in 1991, and I looked at them and I looked at the meanings. It did nothing for me. Nothing resonated with me. And so I put them in the bottom of a storage box, and they kind of stayed there for over 10 years. And that's when I did a lot of my soul work and my soul growth, because those 10 years is where I was trying to find my way back. And I write about this in my book. I move through different soul levels of awareness to my own soul's destiny. And I use my story to kind of show how I did that. And when I was getting close to piecing it together, after about 10 years or so is when I had my third near-death experience. And during that one, I had a trip to, what I call heaven, because I was raised Catholic, the afterlife, whatever you believe in. And I met who I believe to be Jesus. And he told me that it wasn't my time yet because I had yet to become who I was meant to be. And so, I woke up for what I thought a cool dream again and, said to myself, well, who am I supposed to be? What is that all about, right? And a few weeks later, I got an invitation to be a psychic reader at a tarot card reader at a psychic fair.
We have an exciting opportunity to share with you.
Did you know each week inside the Soul Revival community, we have a giveaway? One lovely soul is gifted something sacred, a Reiki session, an intuitive reading, a powerful course, or even access into the community itself. This isn't just a giveaway. It's a soul blessing, a moment where healing meets divine timing. You'll feel the shift, you'll see the signs, and you'll know you're not alone anymore. Say yes to your intuition, your healing, your next chapter. Enter now at the link below in the show notes labeled Soul Revival Giveaway for your chance to win.
Let's get back to today's episode.
Random, don't know how this person got my name. I was not a psychic reader. Those cards were still in that box, never used them. And I ran into I had moved a few times, but I still had that box of odds and ends. And I went digging in there and I found the cards. I went back to the phone. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And this is how I started. I showed up one day and of course I was going to tell the lady, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't know how to do this, but I wanted to at least show up and see if I could help in some other way, but she wasn't having it. She's like, oh no, you need to read. I need you. And I just sat there and prayed no one would show up. And my first client came in and I put down all the cards and I had no idea what I was doing. And I looked down at them and this electric shock came in the top of my head and went like through my body. And I just started speaking and I knew all these specific things that she verified. And then she was so excited and said it was one of the best readings she ever had. And I ran into the bathroom and threw up. That's how I started reading. It's sad but true.
That's not validation that there's no coincidences and the universe delivers us what we're meant to be delivered. I don't know
Exactly.
what is. That's amazing.
Yeah, and to this day, I use the same deck of cards that I bought in 1991, original worn out deck, and I read the same way. I couldn't tell you to this day what the tarot card means. So it works. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So that's that. So I just look at this stuff. I throw them in these weird, messy piles, and somehow spirit works with me that way. So yeah. And then, kind of fast forward after doing that here and there for about 10 years, I started hearing again. So it was like I had to go through this because I was still working on my soul level progression. I wasn't quite there yet. And, that's one of the things, the takeaways that I learned and that I write about is that everything happens for a reason. Lessons are often blessings, right? We've heard that. And it's true. People come into your path for a reason. Like this lady, how did she find me? Why me? I never did a reading. It's just so bizarre, right? And why did I even say yes? I mean, so it's just craziness, but I've learned that there's a reason and a purpose for everything. And the hardest thing to do is to have patience because that was clearly not a virtue that I was born with. I could say that honestly. But, to truly surrender and trust the process, that's so hard. And it's, I have to, practice what I preach because even in my own life, it's like, oh my God, when, or why, but that's the hardest lesson I think people need to learn and really if they go back and they start looking at people's places, events, things will start to make shape of why these things happened and what soul level they were in when this happened. So it starts to make sense.
And I feel like when things happen that are intentional for our soul's journey and expansion, it's like a beacon, like it's your example of why'd you even say yes when you got that phone call? I feel like it's a
Right.
beacon because we forgot what we already know when we came into this lifetime, which you experienced when you were 4, right? And so your soul is beaconing back to what it knew is truth when you were born in this incarnation. And that's why, you say yes, even though you literally, and that's the thing, like you probably didn't let your egoic mind think about it. You just
Right.
like your natural response was yes, because that was your soul response.
Right. And the things are so random. Like, when I worked in New York City, I had like, a process. Like every day I had like 45 minutes for lunch. I would go of one of 3 places just because you had to be quick. It had to be, right there. And then all of a sudden one day I just started walking randomly and came upon the psychic store and knew I had to go in. Like, how did that happen? I'd been working there for a couple years and all of a sudden I just go a different way out of the blue one day. So it just happens like that. So, and you start to realize, even just in the last few years before I started, the reason why there was a delay in my book is because I still had to figure some things out and things had to come into place. And this is what I was told. And in the last few years, I started figuring out things. One of the things earlier on, I had an infatuation as a child with Isis. There was a TV show when I was younger. I think it was about 8 years old, and this lady was a school teacher, and she had this amulet, and she turned into Isis, and she could fly. I was fascinated. I thought I was Isis. I tried to fly. I threw myself on the pavement outside my house many times trying to fly. And I couldn't understand why I really thought, and I had the dreaming, of flying and all this. And come to find out, I had my astrological chart done, and I actually have the asteroid Isis in my chart, and I have a connection to her and her sister. It's all in my chart. But the fascinating connection is Isis is the mother of souls. She restored the souls from the dead. She worked with the afterlife. And so here I am as a young child with this infatuation with this,
Wow.
goddess that works with the afterlife, having no idea that I'm actually a medium that does that. So it all makes sense now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's so many things that I've learned through my chart, through a past life regression, even. It's like, oh my God, that's why I did that, or that's why I like these things. It's just really wild.
Oh, I love that.
That lights me up. I just think that, following the breadcrumbs, even if you don't know where they're leading,
Right.
is so important, and being brave enough to surrender. I think that surrender is a practice, right? It's hard. And yeah, a lot of people, once they surrender, they experience a joy that they probably never really experienced each and every day.
It's true. And it all depends on where we are, in those soul level categories that I call solitudes. So if you are going through life and kind of like where I was at one time, I was a single mom. I was taking care of 2 small kids. I was caregivers for my parents. I was trying to hold down a job, and support myself and do it. I couldn't do, it was just psychic work at the time, but I couldn't do it because I didn't have the time. So I was kind of compromised. That's one of the soul categories, right? And then, then maybe what you want to do, and you can't break out from it for financial reasons, or maybe, you kind of know what you want to do, but maybe you have religious beliefs that prohibit you from doing what you love. Okay, maybe it's just your education or lack of education that keep you from doing. There's a lot of different reasons, and then
Or being stuck
people
in
fall into
comfort.
yeah, people fall into these categories and they get stuck, and then they can't figure out, well, why don't I like this job? Every time I take a job, I'm good at what I do and I'm successful, but I'm not happy, or why am I in this relationship? Every relationship seems to turn out the right way, or I'm attracting the same type of person all the time. It's the solitude that you're in, that soul level. And so you have to learn to navigate those. So we all come into the world, what I call the clear solitude, meaning everybody, has a soul contract. On some level, we, come into this human body knowing, okay, this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. But either, we forget immediately, or over time, right? Forget. And that's the fact of being human. And then we go through all these solitudes trying to figure it out, navigate it to get back to clear before we transition to the afterlife. That's the goal. Get back to clear, right? That you know what your purpose is.
Connie, does your beautiful book walk people through these seasons of their life?
Absolutely. So this is my book. Here it is. Yeah.
So pretty. I
So
love the
so
cover.
what it does is it explains the different soul categories, the solitudes, and then I give a description of each category of what that looks like, right?
Are you seeing repeating numbers, feathers, or hearing songs at just the right time? Those signs aren't random. They're messages from your angels. Join the Soul Revival August 7th at 7 p.m. Central Time for a powerful live course, Angel Signs. We'll teach you how to receive, decode, and trust in divine guidance. You'll learn how to spot signs from your angels, understand their meanings, and strengthen your connection to the other side. This isn't just a class. It's an activation. And trust me, your angels are already nudging you to say yes. Reserve your spot now. You don't want to miss this. Link below.
Did you know that amazing programs like this are free for members of the Soul Revival community? Jump over to the link below and join us today.
And then I use my own story to show how I transitioned through these. So the solitudes, when I first, and this is the reason why it took me, I've been thinking about writing a book forever. And while I was thinking about, writing it, I was just going to write my story and, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, something's missing. And then it's interesting. One of my colleagues, Laura Lynn Jackson, I met at a grief retreat through a Forever Family Foundation, and we talked and we agreed to exchange readings one day. And then during my reading with her, she said that I was going to write a book. Now, I had already started, and she didn't know. And she said, you're going to get a lot of help from your spirit team. And she said, you're going to get a couple of major chapters and the direction of the book downloaded to you while you're on a ship. Well, what she didn't also know is in 2 weeks, I was leaving on a family cruise. And sure enough, like this, I can't remember, I wrote it down, but second or third day into the cruise, I'm out there early in the morning, sitting on a deck chair, enjoying, the serenity. And all of a sudden it's like, bing, bing, I hear all this like chatter. I'm like, oh my God, and so I got like my phone out and I'm writing and I'm, doing it, and I was like, wow. And that's where they gave me the solitudes and explained, all this stuff. And they said, yes, we want you to write your book, but we want your story to show an example of how you move through the solitude so people can easily understand that. And so that's what I did. And I've gotten such great feedback from people that have read it and said such, like, wow, things make sense to me. Like this was so helpful on my own journey of why I feel stuck, or I feel like I don't know what my purpose is. And that's why, like, it's one thing just to write your story, but I didn't move forward because I wanted it to have purpose. I wanted my story to be impactful, to be helpful to someone else, not just to write my story because it's my story, right? So, and this is how I feel like, that it all came together. And so I'm very pleased with it. And I just love, the feedback that I've been getting about it, that it has been helpful to a lot of people.
So beautiful, so beautiful. I personally have one last question, and that is obviously you and I connected deeply over our connection to animals, and what I know for sure is our soul contract with each animal that comes into our life, and their ability to reincarnate back to us. How does how do our soul contracts with animals relate to where we're at on our evolutionary journey of the soul?
Yeah, I think very similar to how we, relate to other, people, because it's all about love and kindness, right? And it's all about being the best person you can possibly be while you're here. And a lot of people don't understand, you might be given a break when it comes to an animal because it's easy to love an animal, right? And they love you unconditionally. And I feel like, you know, it's interesting. I love the little saying, especially I'm partial to dogs because I've rescued dogs, but I love the little saying that, dog spelled backwards is God, right? And I always think about that. I feel like the animals in general are just sent as helpers to us because it's easy. That's the only way I could say it's easy to love an animal and they don't expect anything in return. And it's like if you can just give yourself of yourself to an animal and show kindness and love, it's like imagine what you can do to a person, right? So I kind of feel like they're almost like a stepping stone. I feel like their purposes is like if people maybe are struggling here or don't know how to open themselves up or don't know how to express themselves, they can do it with an animal, right? And it gives them some sense of love or respect and kindness, and they can learn those lessons that they need to learn here through their partnership with an animal. So I think it's very, very similar, but I feel like I said, I feel like they're a gift, almost like a cheat, if you will, right?
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
accomplish something to enlighten your soul in a very easy way.
Hmm. Absolutely. Autumn, do you have any last questions or comments for Connie?
Um, how does being a medium influence your everyday decisions and interactions with people? Like, say that someone doesn't know that you're a medium. Yeah, I'll let you answer it, how it comes up.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I didn't for a very long time say that I was a medium. In fact, I didn't really say I was a medium until I became certified 4 years ago with the Forever Family Foundation.
Wow.
The reason being is that when I mentioned it, I think certain areas are a little bit more open, like maybe like New York or the Northeast, but I'm kind of in Florida and I love it here. But when I started talking about psychics or mediums, it was kind of like, oh, yeah, like what is that, a witch? Or, like people didn't really understand it. And I felt like it was a bit of a put off to a lot of people. So I never said anything. And it wasn't until, I started getting, exposure, with Forever Family Foundation and decided, and again, I was still going through my soul level stuff. And I finally just got to that point where, yes, I am a medium, hear me roar, right? I finally got to that. And it's like, I don't care who knows. I don't care who I'm telling. This is who I am. This is who I'm supposed to be. I'm proud of it. I'm honored by this gift. And that's who I am. And if you don't like it, too bad. And it took like forever for me to get to that point. So now I'll say it. I don't just come out and say it'll come in, conversation. And if they don't understand it, then fine. Then you're not part of my tribe. That's fine. I wish you well. No, not everybody has to accept or like it, or it's not about being a popularity contest. I'm not here for that. I'm here to help heal and convince people that we transcend once we leave our physical bodies. Yes, there's an afterlife. Yes, I've been there a few times. I can vouch for it, right? So that's what my purpose is, to reach as many people as possible and spread that word, right? So, so now, I say it and I leave it with you. And if you love it, great, we can talk more. And if you don't, then fine. I wish you lots of love and, good luck and be on your way. And that's it.
And sometimes I feel like you might be opening the doorway for people as well, like that safe.
Yeah. The other thing that you have to be careful of is I try to shy away. Also, of course, the first time you say that, then the person's like, well, what do you see around me? Right? That's like the first, thing. And then you have to be careful because, in a way, if you're trying to meet new people and new friends, you have to understand, like, are they wanting to meet you because they like you as a person, or they want to meet you because they want you to read for them or give you it, right? So there's always that kind of fine line, so believe it or not, I'm kind of a private person when it comes to that. I'm very outgoing by nature, but I have like a small circle around me. So, and I think, a lot of it is for those reasons.
That makes total sense. Well, please share with us where the best places are to find you. We'll obviously link your amazing book in the show notes, but
Oh, thank you.
tell the people listening how they can find you and connect with you.
Sure. So my website is www.meaningfulmessages.info. And I have an events and training workshop page. So I train, I offer private workshops in person, online. I also teach through the Journey Within. I teach a beginner's three-part mediumship class. And I also started a practice circle, a beginner level practice circle. So if anybody's had, some mediumship training, then feel free. You can sign up. I do it twice a month. And you can see the events. I'll be on Signs of Life Radio this month. I will be in Lilydale at the end of June. I will be presenting at the IONS Conference, International Association for Near-Death Studies in Chicago in August. And then I'll be
Congratulations on that, by the way.
yeah,
That's huge.
thank you. Yeah, I presented last year and they invited me back. I'm so excited. And then I'll be at a grief retreat in California with Forever Family Foundation in October. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I just have to say that having witnessed you reading for others and having been blessed with multiple readings with you myself, that you are amazing, not only at connecting with the humans in our life, but the animals on the other side, as well as our animals' higher self here in this incarnation. So I can't say enough beautiful things about the work that you do, and it's been a total blessing in my life. So thank you, thank you, thank you
Thank
for
you.
stepping up and saying yes to that tarot day.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with both of you today.
Connie, it was a pleasure. I am going to run and buy your book right after this call.
Oh,
So
thank
excited
you.
to read it. I love, is it on Audible? I love listening to books.
It's not on Audible yet. That's the next step. Yeah, just
Well,
ebook and yeah.
it gives me a reason to read a book then. I will
There you go. It's a quick read.
I look, yeah, it definitely is.
It's
Looks
a
like
quick
a quick
read.
Oh,
read.
awesome. Awesome. My type of book. Well, Connie, thank you so much for coming on. Again, it was a pleasure meeting you and sharing.
Likewise. Thank you. Take care now.
Bye.
If today's words stirred something in you, that's no coincidence. Your soul is speaking and it's ready to be heard. If you resonated with today's episode, Spirit is cheering you on, encouraging you. Start choosing yourself again. Start saying yes to your healing and join our sacred community over at www.thesoulrevival.com.
Because healing is better when we do it together. If you love this episode, be sure to hit follow, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to return to their soul self. Thank you, Aligned Souls.